Hello, GetUWired fans. Welcome to the February 2020 edition of Cabin Signal. Today, I have the distinct honor, pleasure of speaking with one of my longtime friends, person that has been with GetUWired on this journey as an agency for many years, Evan Samurin, the founder and CEO of Fundamental Marketing. You know, recently I had the opportunity of having Evan share to our entire team the importance of email deliverability in this day and age and all the things that are involved in it. And we're a full service marketing agency. And it was amazing to me, the data, the statistics, and exactly what goes on in this day and age to maintain healthy email service, deliverability, database management. Our clients spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in many cases on advanced funnels and drip marketing campaigns, email marketing campaigns, etc. And quite frequently in today's marketing, what's overlooked is the health at which we are operating. We spend thousands and thousands of dollars on content, on all of our creative, on everything, but yet at the end of the day, we're expecting, everything just to land in someone's lap, in their inbox. They're going to open it and they're going to read it. And if we have great copy that connects with them, then perhaps it will lead to a conversion. Well, that isn't really the case. Evan has broken down some really important foundational and fundamental aspects that has opened our eyes as an agency. And as a matter of fact, it has become required criteria for any of our clientele that we are doing substantial email marketing for to go through Evan's audit and for him to take a look at the system just to make sure that, we're able to honor that investment on their part. So that's a little bit of a backstory, but I'd like to welcome Evan. Evan Samurin, so glad to have you here. So honored to have you today.
Thanks. Thank you for having me. And you can probably see in the background, my advisors are here with me today. So you see the little guy back there. He's my good luck charm. No. So thank you for having me. I just wanted people to go like, why is because I know this is gonna be podcast, there's gonna be some video. So some people are going, is that really a dog in the background? And for those people that are just listening, yes, there's two dogs in the background. So, but Dobbin, thank you so much. I really appreciate taking the time to be here today for you and getting this message out to people, because it's just, people don't know this stuff, and there's the saying, you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And in marketing today, unfortunately, you don't know about this stuff typically until you get smacked by your mailbox provider that your deliverability is low or your conversions are down. So, the big thing I want people to take away from everything today is that you have control over your email. That's the number one message that I want to get through, is that they have control over the deliverability of their email. It's not just up to the systems that they use, like Infusionsoft or Entreport or ActiveCampaign or HubSpot. It's not them. It's you've got the ability to control that. So great to be here.
Yeah, well, that's great. Believe it or not, I actually like the feeling of being in control of stuff.
Most people do. Most people really do. And it comes down to, and we chatted about this the other day, it's about being in control of the most important aspect of any marketing campaign, any marketing or advertising campaign. And I believe that the most important aspect of any campaign is, can you get people's eyes on it? And that goes for advertising, that goes for creating a website, that goes for your Facebook ads, that goes for your email copy. Like, if you can't get people to see it, it doesn't matter how good it is. The best artist in the world, if no one ever sees his painting, no one ever knows. And the same thing goes with your email and pretty much everything else you do as a business.
Well, that's incredible. It was really fascinating, and I hope you're able to get into, with domain reputation and the other aspects of this that are all interconnected. To me, it's just fascinating, but sorely neglected and overlooked. And so I felt as though it's my obligation to our audience, and this video will not only go out to our audience, but internally for our clients, we'll be sharing it, because I really think that this is the most topical and probably one of the most important conversations you can have in this day and age. Now, you were sort of forced into learning this stuff. You like disappeared. You like went off into the desert, and we were all like, where's Evan? You know, where did Evan go? And then like you came back out of the desert and you were glowing and you said, behold.
Yeah, I had my
deliverability.
I had my Jim Morrison spiritual journey through the desert, you know, minus the high on mushrooms and everything else. But no, you know, I got into this by inadvertently solving a problem. So I probably, well, not probably, I was like most everyone else who's going to be on this call. I kind of believed the myths of email. And one of the biggest myths is that email is a guaranteed service and that I have no control over it. And I was kind of like that. I'm like, okay, I sign up for my mailbox provider, and whoever I send from, they're responsible for it. All I have to do is write my content and hit send. And that's not true. So long story short, I had a client come to me with a problem around compliance laws in Europe, GDPR. And in solving that problem, we did some work on their email list. Well, about 3 weeks after the problem, they called me up and they go, Evan, what did you do? I'm like, I didn't break anything. I don't know. And they're like, no, our email rates, our open rates have doubled. Our click-through rates are 2.5 times what they were, and our revenues are up, and we're not doing anything different. What did you do? And that's when I had the boom light bulb. So I backtracked to understand, what did I do? What did I impact? And literally that's when I learned, wow, I can have just as much, if not more, impact on bottom line revenues for businesses by getting their mail delivered through than any other campaign I can create. So I went into the desert, as you call it, and disappeared, and really became a student of email deliverability. I just invested thousands of hours in learning and reading and testing and tweaking and understanding what it takes to get emails delivered. And now today, that's all I focus on with my clients. I'd say I have one retainer client, but 95% of my business today is all email deliverability related. And a lot of that comes through education. And the first thing I want to educate everyone that's listening is that email is not a guaranteed service. Email is not like picking up the phone, dialing a number, and as long as that number is real, it will ring on the other end. Email, unfortunately, doesn't work that way. So that's number one. Secondarily, is on the receiving side, is just because you request something to come to you doesn't mean that it actually will. There are things that you can control that dictate that. And understanding that when you hit send does not guarantee it'll get received, and when you request doesn't mean you'll get it, are two of the biggest hurdles that you have to overcome. And once you start to understand and accept that as reality, now you can deal with it. Like you said, you've got control and you can take control. And it's just hard because there's been years and years of just bad education. Well, not bad education, but old education. You know, for the last probably decade and a half, I'm sure you heard this, everyone's saying, you got to build a list. You got to build a big list, and you mail that list until they buy or they opt out. And that's what everyone had been taught. Some people have been taught, and even mail them again if they opt out from another system. Please never do that, because the only person you'll hurt is yourself. So there's been all this, not bad information, but information that hasn't evolved as the spam filtering have changed and as things have evolved. And the key is what's worked over the last decade does not work anymore. You know, February of last year, 2019, deliverability really took a massive, massive change. And that's when machine learning really was put prominently into place through Google. You can Google it. Google, Gmail, TensorFlow, February 19, and you'll see tons of articles written about Google announcing the artificial intelligence or machine learning TensorFlow that they implemented for their spam filters. And they were touting that they're blocking an additional 100 million emails a day getting blocked. I just think of that, 100 million more emails blocked through AI. And that was just when they turned it on. And that AI is a continually evolving and learning and doing their job. So, I mean, the rules have changed. They've changed completely. And the challenge that you face is that every mailbox provider has these different rules. So Gmail looks at things differently than Yahoo, and Yahoo looks at things differently than Hotmail, and Hotmail looks at things differently than SBC Global. So they've all got these slightly different rules. And then because it's machine learning, these rules are changing all the time with no notification. Kind of sounds like my relationship at home. It's like, here's your rules, happy wife, happy life. You follow the rules until the rules change and you didn't know. So then you're relearning rules. It's funny because deliverability is a lot the same way. You do everything you can to appease the machine learning and appease the spam filters, and then all of a sudden something tweaks. Usually it's not something drastic that tweaks, it's something that controls, and we'll start talking about that. But the key, as I'm going in circles here, but not really, is that there are rules. And if you don't play by the rules, your emails will go to the spam folder. And if you really violate the rules, your emails will get blocked. I've got a client I'm working with right now. Everything they send is going to spam. Personal email from their G Suite account, email from their Infusionsoft, everything. And that's because they've gotten high spam complaints and had nothing in place. So
now you aren't talking about me, are you?
No, not never talk about you that way. No, it wasn't you, but it's when you don't know to watch for something, it's like that festering disease that you don't know you have until it's bad. Most of us, we get a common cold and we're like, oh, it'll run its course. Well, 2 weeks later, we finally go to the doctor and they go, you got pneumonia because you didn't treat it when it was small. And a lot of times people don't know they have deliverability problems until their email system has pneumonia. Where the reality is you've probably got a cold and we need to fix it. So rather than beating a dead horse that there's these problems that exist, and frankly, 90% of people that are sending email commercially have problems. They just don't know it. I think we should probably start talking about what we can do to fix things. What do you think?
Yeah, I love that. And another thing that I'll mention is when you really open my eyes to a lot of this is also the metrics that I'm looking at. As an example, inside of my CRM marketing automation platforms, such as Keep, Infusionsoft, ActiveCampaign, HubSpot, etc., that we're looking at, the data that we're looking at there is not necessarily accurate in respects to what we're talking about here today. So a lot of times we tend to trust the bounce and the deliverability feedback within that. Some of the feedback you gave me regarding those systems was like, ooh, maybe I need to be looking also in some other places.
Yeah, and you're spot on. So you've got to think of the data. There's not a single data point that paints the entire picture. All of the data are little pieces of the puzzle. And when you put those different pieces together, that's when we're able to see the picture of deliverability. So, things to look at, look at obviously open rates and click rates. Open rates are never 100% accurate, but trends within rates are. So if you're seeing yourself, every month you're dropping 1%, you're dropping 1%, you're dropping 1%, that's probably a pretty good flag that, hey, there's probably something going on here. Because you won't just decline with all else being the same. That's number one. Click-through rate. Click-through rate, again, pretty consistent. If you see a drop in trends in click-through rate, probably a sign of something going on. Now, day to day, things will always fluctuate. So never take a day as, you take a day as a grain of salt. I'm like, hey, I had bad copy that day, but if you see a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks in a row where open rates and click rates are declining, red flag. One of the big red flags you look at is bounce rate. Bounce rate is a great barometer, so to say, or temperature gauge of the health of your list. Usually 2% is the threshold that I like to look at. Anything more than 2% starts really raising issues. And it's not just 2% of overall, it's 2% to a particular domain. So, you may have, a 10,000 person list and a 1.5% bounce rate. But if that 1.5% bounce rate is all Yahoo and AOL, well, that tells a story that, hey, you have a deliverability issue with Yahoo and AOL that we need to address. So it's those. Then you can look at things like Google Postmaster. Google is awesome, and anyone who's selling direct to consumer, Google is probably, it is the largest portion of your list. Anywhere from 40 to 80% of your list is going to be Google. And Google's really cool because they're the only providers that give us as business owners the ability to look and see what they really think of us. So we can see what's the reputation of our domain. What are our spam complaints look like? Are we getting filtered, or are we having any delivery issues? And they'll tell us why. And all of those, again, bits and pieces of the puzzle. We could see that deliverability domain reputation may have taken a dip. Usually if you see a dip, that means it could be you've got spam complaints. It could be you've got low engagement. It could be you're putting bad links in your email to another domain, and that domain is negatively impacting you. So it's all about knowing the data and what to watch for, and then how to paint the picture. And that's, I pat myself on the shoulder. That's where I come in, because I know that stuff. One thing is, people like to look at specific data points and freak out. Remember, one data point's one data point. It's all a piece of a puzzle. But we can see the data and we can react to the data. So things you look at, open rates and click-through rate trends. You see a negative trend, it's a red flag that you've got an issue. If you're seeing high bounce rates, near or above 2% and going up, that's a red flag that you have an issue. If you're sending yourself test emails that are going to the spam folder suddenly, that's a red flag that there's a potential issue. So those are, all ways you can kind of see what's going on. So I think we should probably talk about, why email deliverability has gotten hard, what the job of the provider is, and then what are the 3 key things to look at to really help improve deliverability. That sound good to you? Are we good to transition?
That sounds great. Yeah, absolutely. And everybody pay close attention to this. So the majority of everybody that could potentially be watching this video on our list, out in our social spectrum, you're all doing email marketing. You need to pay close attention to this. This is real serious stuff, and it's real valuable to you. It's eye-opening, to say the least.
It's good stuff. So, why has deliverability gotten hard? Well, think of it from the job. So your email provider, like Gmail or Yahoo, like their job, when you think of it, is to provide a quality inbox experience for their subscribers. And an inbox full of spam that they have to weed through to find the emails that are actually important for them is not a quality inbox experience. So all of these filters are created to make your experience using those better. Now, in doing so, there starts to come some friendly fire. Things may get filtered by mistake. That happens a lot of times, but sometimes it's, hey, my emails are going to promotions. Why? Well, probably because it's a promotional email that's heavily promoting something and it's going to land there. But those folders are created to provide that better experience for people. And when you look at the sheer volume of spam, I just pulled the numbers for January. Cisco has an arm of the business called Talos Intelligence, and they do a monthly report on spam and email volumes. So the average daily legitimate email volume in January was 47.14 billion emails a day. And that was the legitimate overall email flow. The average daily spam volume, 263 billion emails. So 84% of the email that they track in volume was spam. So if you wonder why the filters are getting so hard, it's the sheer volume of junk that people send out there, and that's why it's hard. So
can I just unravel that a little bit in a question for you?
Yes, please do.
So what that's telling me is that if I'm not being mindful in very intentional terms with the way that I am delivering email, there is a likelihood that 84% of what I'm sending right off the top is not making it where it's supposed to go.
No, I wouldn't say 84% is not making it where it's supposed to go. I'd say probably 1 in 5 emails are not making it through. 20% of your emails are going to junk on a good day
Right.
because of filtering and machine learning. And part of that is to understand that your definition of a spammer is different than the mailbox provider's definition of a spammer. So like
Right.
most people typically think, if I ask you the question, Dobbin, let me ask you this, Dobbin, what is a spammer? What's spam? What's your response?
Sure, someone that's sending unsolicited broadcasts.
Yeah, and that definitely is spam. So think like the joyous Viagra and Cialis emails that we get all the time, the sign up for solar because they purchased a list of homeowners that we get. Think of the Nigerian prince who wants to send you $1 million if you give him, $1,000 and access to your routing numbers. That's most people's definition of spam, and that is spam. Well, the mailbox providers like Google and Yahoo, that definition goes out a little bit further. If you're sending email at high volumes to invalid email accounts, you're a spammer. If you're hitting spam traps, emails that were once valid or that were created to trap people from mailing, and you're mailing those over and over again, you're a spammer. If your emails that you're sending are always landing in the spam folder for people and they're never opening them up and dragging them out, you're a spammer. If you're mailing someone 6 months, a year, 2 years, and they're not engaging with you, you're a spammer. Their definition of a spammer is different than ours. And that's a big thing to learn and understand. What the mailboxes want is you to be mailing to people who are engaging with your content. And engagement is one of the biggest builders of reputation. It's one of the 3 pillars of deliverability. We're going to talk about those in a second. But realistically, delivering emails today, if we broke it down really short, is a reputation contest. It's like being on, America's Got Talent, and we're all hoping we get the golden buzzer, which is access to the inbox. But the way people interact with your email is what builds your reputation. So people opening emails, clicking on links, replying to emails, forwarding emails, moving your email from a spam folder to an inbox, those are all positive reputation builders. That says, hey, this sender sends good emails, we're going to give them better placement. People deleting your email without reading it hurts your reputation. An email being sent and never opened over and over and over and over again hurts your reputation. Sending an email to someone that they mark as spam is the worst thing that can happen. That hurts your reputation. Landing in the spam folder over and over again and never getting pulled out hurts your reputation. So, there's pieces that you got to pay attention to through your daily sends that make a difference there. So before we talk about what you need to fix, this is always a question I get, and it's, is there a way I can guarantee my emails that get delivered always? Is there anything I can do? And that answer is no. There is no way to 100% guarantee consistent inbox deliverability, because they look at reputation, they look at authentication, and they look at your content. Any one of those are off, it could land you in the spam folder. So unfortunately, there is no silver bullet. There is no 100% guaranteed deliverability. And if anything or anyone tells you differently, they're a liar. So how do you take control? I think we're ready to talk about control. Like, what can you actually do? Because there is a problem. You probably have the problem. So what do you do about it?
I call Evan.
There we go. You can call me, go to fundamental.marketing /GetUWired. So get-u-wired, and you can, sign up and we'll talk and figure it out. So how do you take control? First thing is realizing that you have control. And if you're listening to this point, you're starting to hear that you have control over your deliverability. So when it comes to taking control, there's 3 key things that you pay attention to. authentication, reputation, and content. Um, any one of those are off can cause a problem in your deliverability. Unfortunately, there's not one of them that's a silver bullet to fix everything. So you got to be paying attention to all of it. So authentication, what are they looking for? Well, all the major mailbox providers in their sending guidelines tell you there's 3 things that you need when you're sending an email to prove that that email is actually from you. And here's where I'm going to get a little acronym happy for a second, and I'm going to apologize to everyone because you're not going to know what I'm talking about. You're going to be confused, but know that these are the 3 things that you have to have, and an expert in this can help get you taken care of, like me. And those 3 things are SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. Those are the 3 authentication protocols that you need to have in place for every mechanism that you send email from. So if you have your business email hosted through G Suite, G Suite has to have SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. If you use Infusionsoft or Keep, that has to be authenticated. If you use some sort of support system like Freshdesk or Zendesk, that needs to be authenticated. Anywhere you're sending email from has to be authenticated. And the reason this is so important is because the mailbox providers are trying to protect their subscribers. And they're protecting them because 80% of all cybercrime starts from an email. So this authentication is all designed to basically say, hey, this email is really from who it says it's from. I'm sure, Dobbin, have you ever gotten one of those emails from like Amazon that said, hey, your account's been compromised, reset your password here? And it looks like it's from Amazon, but when you look at the from email and you look at the domain it takes you to, it's actually not Amazon. Have you ever hit those?
Oh yeah, I mean, hundreds a day come into my spam filter for sure.
Yeah, that's called spoofing or phishing. They're faking the domain. And this authentication is all there to say, hey, that's not happening. This email is actually from me. So the good news for you is once those systems are set up, they're pretty much set up. You don't have to do too much changing or editing to those once they're configured, unless you switch systems. So the first thing we look at is, are your emails authenticated? And again, one, it says it's who it says it's from, but secondly, especially with a system like Infusionsoft, when you authenticate properly, now you're sending off of your domain and your reputation. When you don't authenticate emails from Infusionsoft, you're sending off of their reputation, and their reputation is impacted by everyone who's using their system that isn't sending properly authenticated emails. So if you don't have that done, you have no control over your deliverability other than your content. Whereas if you authenticate things properly, you now have the control to say, I'm going to put proper sending practices in place. I'm going to control my destiny to the inbox and do things right. So authentication, number 1, has to be done. The second piece we start looking at now is reputation. And we talked about some of the positive and negative reputation builders before. Reputation, when it comes to deliverability, is important on every platform. Remember, we talked about how everyone has their own rules and the rules are all different. Well, every mailbox provider in their rules says we look at engagement. Now, how much they weight engagement is different by provider. But with Gmail, which for most people on this call or this listening here probably is 50 to 60% of their list, that's going to dictate deliverability heavily for you. Gmail, I'd say reputation is like 70 to 80% of the algorithm when it comes to getting delivered with Gmail. Reputation is key. And what that means, what they look for is, in short, are you sending content to people and are they engaging with it? And if that teeter-totter is more towards engaged, you have a higher reputation. If it's lower, you have a lower reputation. So the key is start sending your mail to people that actually are reading it and engaging with it. And that's kind of hard for people because we say, well, they requested it 2 years ago. I have permission to send. Well, technically by the letter of the law, yeah, you've got permission. Funny story, I actually had a client who wanted to argue that with me, that the mailbox providers have no right to filter them out. They signed up for my list 2 years ago, so I can mail them if I want today unless they've opted out. and they should deliver it to an inbox. I'm going to sue them because they're not doing that. I'm like, good luck. good luck with that one. So they look at it, and there's nothing you can do to control whether they look at engagement or not. You just have to know what they have. So knowing that they look at engagement, you've got to make mental shifts in our head. Now, as salespeople, we love yeses, we love nos, but maybe world sucks. And most people, when they're sending to their entire list, you're sending to a lot of people that are in maybe world, that are really in no world. So when someone's not engaging with your emails, you've got to make this shift psychologically to understand that what they're telling you is one of two things. Either they're not getting your emails, which is why they're not opening them, or they're not interested in what you're offering them, and they're telling you no by ignoring you. So it's hard to accept that for a lot of people because there's been all this vanity and build your big list. And if they requested it, they want it. But, you got to say to yourself, mailing them people that aren't engaging is hurting me. So if you're not engaging, you're telling me no. And if you're telling me no, why am I going to waste my time talking to you? I'm not. I want no part of that. So engagement is key. And setting a cutoff for people who stop engaging is vital today, because the more people that you mail that don't engage, the worse your reputation is. It looks like you have a question.
What would you recommend about that cutoff?
It really varies on the health of your domain. If you've got really high engagement, and let's say you look at Google Postmaster and you've got a high domain rating, you can get away with more. If you've got a middle or a low reputation, you can get away with less. The general rule of thumb for active mailing is somewhere within a 90-day engagement period. That's where you want to have your cutoff. I've got some clients that will only mail people that have been engaged in the last 30 days. And if someone hits 31 days of no engagement, they pull them out of their list and stop mailing them. I've got, and they've got, they're running 40, 50% open rates in the financial services space. That's really freaking good. I've got other clients that actively mail people that have been engaged 30 to 60 days. Then once they hit, and let's say they send a daily email. So I'm going to send a daily email to everyone engaged in the last 60 days. Well, 60 to 90 days, I'm going to send a weekly email. 90 to 120, I'm going to send a bi-weekly email or a monthly email. 120 to 180, I'm going to send a monthly or bi-monthly email. And then if they hit 180 days, I'm just going to pull them out, throw them into Facebook for retargeting, throw them into Google for retargeting, throw them into LinkedIn lists for retargeting, and then let them opt back in if they want to receive everything from me. The leaner and meaner your list, the better off you're going to be. You see addition by subtraction. By mailing less, your net volume of opens will go up. Not percentage, but net.
Interesting. What about let's just say products or services that are highly seasonal, like they're around Valentine's or they're around Christmas? So they don't really have a message, 90% of their business is done around a specific holiday, particularly let's just say around the holiday seasons, December, Black Friday. Everything revolves around that. They may not be marketing throughout the year because there's really no reason for them to based on that specific product or service. What advice would you give to that type of business?
I think you need to have, consistent touch points with people. And the big reason why is you don't want them to forget who you are. There's that saying in life, it takes 21 days to make a habit. I'm sure you've heard that at some point in your life. That 21 days is a psychological trigger in your mind. So the flip response, it takes 21 days to people to really forget you. And the risk that you run of not communicating is they're going to forget you and they're going to mark you as spam. So that's number one. Secondly, if you don't have some sort of engagement regularly, the mailbox providers are going to look at it as being a promotional email and relegate you more to promotions and inbox. So having consistent email, even if it's one email a month that goes out to your engaged people, is vital. And what content do you put out? Really, it depends on who your list is and the value. I just talked to someone just before this. They have an herb supplement company, all natural herbs, and she was having problems because everything she was sending was promotional. And I said, well, what's your avatar? This is where like running through your customer avatar is so important. Like, who's your target customer? What are the problems or challenges that they have? And what can you provide to them that might not just be promotional, get a 20% discount on my service, that's going to be of value to them? So for her, she dealt with people who had, rheumatic rheumatic illnesses, that were fighting cancer, that had pain issues going on. So, for her, it's what other content can you provide them to help them with kind of subsequent issues that may coincide with that. So it's not just about you, it's not just about pushing, it's providing value. It's creating the relationship with people and having that rapport. Maybe it's happy Thanksgiving email that goes out. Happy holidays, not just promotional. It could be, if you're in the housing market, it could be industry shifts. It could be an announcement that, hey, the Fed is shifting rates. If you've been looking to refinance, I don't do that, but now's a good time. You should talk to someone. I mean, there's always value that we can be providing our subscribers. We just have to stop thinking of it selfishly as how does the content we're pushing drive them to a sale versus how does the content we create foster a relationship.
Great. Makes perfectly good sense.
I hope so. It's, I remember one of my sales mentors always told me, you make a friend, you make a sale. And email should be used, especially in the digital world, to help foster that relationship. One of the big things that people can do to from a content perspective to help deliverability is having a welcome sequence or an indoctrination campaign. So anytime there's a new person on your list, you've got this really branding centric campaign that runs out. It might be one email, it could be 3 emails, but builds that know, like, and trust with your subscriber base. It's a great way to help foster a relationship. Set the expectations on what you're going to send, and in the permissions. So things like that make a big difference. It's all relationships. And when you make that shift and you start looking at email as a relationship building tool, it'll help you shape your content in a different way that drives more engagement. So yeah,
incredible.
It is. So we talked authentication, reputation. So setting to engaged, creating a dialogue, asking people questions, asking for replies are great ways to drive engagement. Not everything needs to be robotic. Click here, fill out this survey, get engagement with people, get them to reply, ask questions. Great ways to drive and improve your reputation there. Is that making sense?
Yeah, it's making perfectly good sense. So here we're getting more into the content end of, what's, smart marketing in regards to email marketing, getting engagement, keeping, conversion and all of that sort of thing. You have to get engagement before you get conversion, but, fascinating stuff. When we're on the other side of it, when we're looking at the deliverability and, I know for a lot of people that we talk to, when you're talking about specifically like SPF, the DKIM, the DMARC, all of that, it's like, oh man, can you, how do you do that? And particularly with DMARC, there's a lot of like questions and confusion.
Oh yeah, there is. And it's one of those things that it seems very easy to do, but if you do it wrong, it can kill you. So I always look at authentication like building a house, and your authentication is your foundation. You cannot build walls up until you build a foundation out. And SPF, DMARC, and DKIM are that. It's very important not to mess with that if you don't know what you're doing. I had a client. No, seriously. So I do a lot of work with it. I work with all platforms, but Infusionsoft and Keep it's probably my biggest customer base there. And their support team actually refers a lot of people to me that are having challenges. So I had they just signed up for Infusionsoft like 3 weeks before, and they went to send their first broadcast to about 13,000 people, and 6,500 of them bounced. And they were mad as hell. Infusionsoft's the worst. I never had this problem with any other system. So, I mean, I was in firefighting mode to help them out. Well, their tech guy set up their authentication. and he didn't set up DKIM for Infusionsoft, but he put a DMARC record in place. And DMARC records are interesting, and I'll get into the weeds a little bit because it's relevant. So SPF and DKIM are the two primary authenticators. DMARC is an aligner. So DMARC, basically, if you were Gmail, Dobbin, and I'm DMARC, the conversation I'm going to have with you is, "Hi, Dobbin, I'm paying attention to the authentication of my emails. So if you receive an email from my domain that doesn't pass SPF or DKIM, here's how I want you to handle it." That's the conversation DMARC has. And within a DMARC record, you can say, let it go. You can say quarantine it, which means put it in the spam folder, or you can say reject it. You can also control at what percentage. So you can say, look at 1% of my emails, look at 100% of my emails. Well, this guy did not set up authentication and put a DMARC record in place that said reject 50% of my emails. And none of his Infusionsoft emails were authenticated. So he basically told them to do what they did, and then got mad when they did what he told them to, because you don't know. So it's so important to really understand that authentication doesn't just impact one system. Authentication has to be in place for the totality of everything that you mail from, and that's your foundational component. It's so vital. Every one of them, Yahoo, Google, you can search it, type in, go ahead and Google Gmail bulk sending guidelines or Yahoo bulk sender guidelines, and they'll all tell you SPF, DKIM, DMARC required. Those are the three things that you have to have in place. They'll tell you when you're looking at, how do they determine reputation? They look at IP reputation. They look at the reputation of your domain. They look at the reputation of any URL in your emails. So let's say you're sending me email from GetUWired.com, but you're linking to GetUWiredSupport.com in your email, and GetUWired Support for some reason has a bad reputation. Those emails will go to spam because it's looking at those. It looks at links in your signatures. I had someone else who came to me, every email he sent was going to spam. Well, when we looked at it, he had 3 different URLs inside of his email signature. The moment we took those URLs out of his signature, everything went to the inbox. That little tiny shift.
Unpack this a little bit. So specifically, your outbound links from inside of your emails have a huge impact on this. And this sounds obvious, and perhaps imagery and other things, but just talking about the links themselves now, like bit.ly links and other links, that's a big no-no in
huge no-no. Yeah, so you when you're using, link shorteners are a massive no-no. Never use a link shortener. The reason why, it's guilt by association of spammers. So if you've ever clicked on a spam link in an email and you watch the URL, you're going to see the URL in the browser shift like 10 times. And what they're doing is they're masking the destination of where they're sending it to. So by using a link shortener like bit.ly, they're saying, why are you masking your link? Spam. Yeah, so bit.ly, the worst. Don't do that one. And then any domain that you're linking to in your email affects the reputation and the placement of that email.
Let me ask you another question. So a lot of people that watch this are undoubtedly utilizing a marketing automation platform. We can use Infusionsoft or Keep as an example. What about the link structures from within Infusionsoft as opposed to our actual domain? So if we're going to, internal landing pages in the system or forms or other things, how does that affect?
Reputation can always impact deliverability. That's why with everyone, I always recommend, if there's a way to set that up on your website or route that page to your domain, you want to do that. Client I was working with yesterday, they had an issue with an ebook they were sending out. They were using Drip, and they hosted the ebook within Drip. Well, one, the file attachment was getting caught up in spam filters because it was like a 2 meg file. So that was causing issues. But the file link was the drip domain, and that was causing issues. So what we did with them is they just created a landing page on their domain, and they uploaded the file to their website and hosted the file there. So rather than downloading an ebook from an email, now they're driving them to the website, which gets you a click and engagement in your email, gets you traffic to your website where they're downloading the content on the website. Now, the beautiful thing is once they're on your website, you have so much more control over what you can do. So you can pixel the traffic and retarget advertise them. You can create pop-ups on the page, exit intent pop-ups to really drive that next step behavior. And you're limiting any possible red flag in your email. So yeah, link structure does make a difference. If you can link it to your domain rather than like an Infusionsoft form domain or just an Infusionsoft domain, you're always going to be better off. Always.
Fascinating. We're getting towards the top of our interview here. One thing that, if there's something else that you'd like to share in regards to content, please do so. But one thing that I'm really interested in for our audience is, what's the starting place? You know, hey, I've got, as an example, randomly, I've got 6,000 people in my Infusionsoft, in my Constant Contact, in my Active Campaign, in my etc. I'm getting ready to warm things up and unleash a campaign. I want to make sure that I'm healthy, that the money I'm investing with my agency, etc., is in line with all of this. Where do they start? How do they connect with you? We'll share a link on how to directly connect with you. But what's the process that you start looking at when you're working with small businesses?
Yeah, great question. So, and thank you, because that was a perfect segue, because I just looked at the timer and saw that, and I'm like, oh, we better start wrapping up. So the couple things that you want to do. So number one is first off, identify, are you authenticating properly and are things healthy? But before we just authenticate everything over, we want to make sure that you're sending the good, clean, valid emails. So the first thing I tell my clients is clean your list. And when I say clean your list, there are software tools out there that you will export your database, upload your database into that tool, and it will tell you, is this email address valid? Is it risky to send to, or is it bad? So it'll identify things like spam traps. Spam traps are emails that these providers use to monitor, are you sending to engaged real people or not? So number one is we got to clean your list. There's tools like Clean 13 or Kickbox that are out there. I personally only use Clean 13 for cleaning their website. If you wanted to check that out, is hygiene.clean13.com. It's the only system I use for validating emails. So number one, clean your list. Make sure you're only sending to good, real, valid email addresses. That helps reputation. Once that's done, then you set up authentication for your domain. Make sure SPF, DKIM, and DMARC are in place for every system that you send from. Then, as you're warming things up, only start sending to the engaged portions of your list to build that reputation up. Remember, engagement within your content in your emails is the biggest builder of reputation. From there, now we start getting, we want to track engagement over the long period of time. We want to make sure if you're 6 months or a year without engaging, we stop marketing to them. We also want to look at how are new people on your list engaging. So if someone comes in and opts in and goes, say, 30 days without engaging, well, we want to stop marketing to them, because the assumption we have to make is they requested an email, they're not doing anything, which means it's probably going to spam. And now that we know that an email landing in spam over and over again hurts our reputation, we want to opt them out. So I've got systems, especially for Infusionsoft and Keep, that I've built to automate this entire process. We can automate the validation of new leads coming into the system to make sure we're only sending the valid emails. I've got systems in place that can automate the entire engagement process. So you'll always know dynamically who are my engaged people, and as they're losing engagement, we can switch messaging up. Those are all things that we offer. In some cases, there was actually a client you referred over to me a week or so ago. they were having major bouncing issues. So they were running like almost a 10% bounce rate in their emails. So we need to now with them put in some automated bounce management because they've got some, issues with the list quality over time. So those are all things that I offer. Those things that we can automate and things that we can put in place. And what I tell people, whether you do business with me, whether you do it yourself or you hire someone else to do it, you can't ignore what we're talking about today. You've got to pay attention, and unless you're just a spammer. Like if you're a pure spammer, then don't set up your authentication because it'll only hurt you. But if you're a legitimate sender of email, you just, whether it's you, me, or someone else doing it, you've got to send authenticated emails. There's warning messages inside of Gmail and Microsoft if you don't. You've got to clean your lists because if you're hitting invalid emails and traps, that damages your domain reputation and your ability to deliver emails. You've got to pay attention to the engagement of people and only send to those most engaged. And you've got to test and check your content. Create a few different email addresses outside of your business domain that you mail to. Create a Yahoo, create a Gmail, send to them. If they land in the spam folder, it will tell you why, especially with Gmail. It'll say, messages from XYZ domain have been marked as spam in the past. Or it'll say, this message looks like mails that have been marked as spam in the past. It tells you you've got content issues that are spammy. It's like, it's cool because they're tools. They just tell you what's going on, but you got to pay attention to it. So, whether it's you, me, someone else, please look at this stuff because you do have control. You've got the ability to control your destiny and impact how well your emails get delivered. And now you know that, so there's no excuse.
And hey, so with Evan, with people that reach out to you, it's quite common that you would have like a 30-minute consultation to hear where they're coming from and to be able to provide at least some gateway advice in regards to direction, whether or not they work with you. I think that's a lot of what GetUWired does. Ultimately, anybody can come in, talk to one of my top consultants in regards to what we can do for them, or at least we arm them with some useful information on their journey. So I really appreciate that. But yeah, it's one of the things, if you have concerns, if you're getting alerts, and like as an example, Infusionsoft, if you're getting alerts from Infusionsoft saying we've frozen up and you can't do any more mailing until you do this X, Y, and Z, time to bring in a professional.
Yeah.
It's long overdue at that point. I have many clients that are in the, hundreds of thousands of contacts club into the millions.
Yeah, and every 30 to 60 days, they're probably getting a warning email.
Yeah, it happens. And I tell you what, the time that you spend worrying about that, and guess what? Those alerts come at the worst possible time, like an event or you're trying to kick off a campaign. It's always it's not at a convenient time this things get shut down. Yeah. So
and take it a step further. By the time you get those warnings, you're doing damage to your domain reputation. So part of it is think of those emails, and I know they're not always worded the best, but they're not there to make you feel bad. They're designed to help you. And those emails are telling you, hey, you have inherent issues going on in your email program that you've got to pay attention to. Because if you don't, they're negatively impacting your bottom line. I mean, at the end of the day, all of this is designed around ROI. It's all about return on investment and the money you're spending on your email marketing programs. And are we going to increase your ROI, or are you going to continue on the path of diminishing returns? Like, that's the end of the day. You have to pay attention to this stuff. So realize that those warnings are actually there to help you. But to go rewind now, yes, I absolutely offer a free consult to people. Deliverability, is most of you probably see now, is the problem that most people have that they don't know they have. And I want to make sure that we take the time to identify what are the issues, are there issues, so you understand what's going on and you can then make a decision. I always end every call with a client. If there's stuff going on, I don't care if I fix it. I don't care if you fix it, but please pay attention to it. So, if you've got questions and you want to take a peek at what's going on, if you've noticed your open rates and click rates are declining, if you notice your bounce rates are going on, schedule it, set up a call. I'm sure my calendar is going to be booked, and I'll be booked up until I get more gray hairs now, but that's okay. Because this stuff is important. This impacts your ability as a business owner to increase and make your revenues. So please, I've got a page that we've just created for you, Dobbin. So my website is fundamental.marketing. There is no .com. So it's just fundamental.marketing/get-u-wired. In fact, hold on.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. So that's the URL that you want to go to, is fundamental.marketing/get-u-wired. There'll be a form on that page that you can sign up for a consultation. We'll take a look and see what's going on and give you a game plan. Like I said, at the very least, I want you to walk away empowered and knowledgeable of what's going on, what's impacting things, and what you can do to fix those. So
that's great. Thank you so much, Evan. And I just want to reiterate, Evan Samurin is my personal go-to guy, is our trusted authority in regards to our clients' email deliverability. This is who we go to with my most valued relationships. I trust it with Evan, and we've had nothing but a great experience. And I've known Evan for many years, and many influencers, authorities, and top marketers are using Evan today in the Infusionsoft ecosystem and outside of it. So if you have any questions about this stuff, make sure that you reach out to him. Wonderful man, helped many of us. Everybody that's come into contact with him has felt blessed and grateful. So thank you for being with us today, Evan. We do appreciate it, and we'll continue sending business your way on a weekly basis here.
Well, I appreciate it. And for those people that stuck around, thanks. I could probably do a week talking on this stuff. There's so much there, and I always try to make it digestible, but thanks for taking the time. Thanks for having me. Thanks for realizing the importance of this and the impact that it can have positively, or unfortunately, if you ignore it, negatively for clients. So, thanks for having me. And for those people that are going to schedule up, I really look forward to meeting you, connecting with you, and identify what's going on. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. February 2020 Cabin Signal coming at you with Evan Samurin, Dobbin Bucks, signing out at the GetUWired Cabin headquarters in North Georgia. Have a great day.